Welcome to the third episode of the Swiftly Spoken Eras Recap, a countdown to the Eras Tour. In this series, we're setting out to recap each and every Taylor Swift era leading up to the Eras Tour, which is currently in under 2 months. These episodes are aimed to serve as a mini crash course through Taylor's discography, leading to the aptly named Eras Tour. In today's episode, we'll be briefly outlining the major moments from Taylor's third era, the Speak Now era. We'll also be going over which songs Taylor has and hasn't performed from her third album, so we can try to take an educated guess as to which songs are most likely to appear in her upcoming tour. We've already spoken about how Taylor debuted and rose to fame through Fearless, but it seemed like she had a lot to prove in her subsequent album Speak Now, as many had questioned her songwriting and performance abilities, which came under fire following Fearless's success.
As previously mentioned, Taylor reached an entirely new level of fame through the Fearless era, and with that success also came criticism and scandal, including the infamous Kanye West VMA award incident and an extremely harsh critique of her performance of Rihanna with Stevie Nicks at the Grammys. It was during this time that Taylor set about writing Speak Now, a deeply personal account of Taylor stepping out of girlhood and entering the spotlight of fame.
Speak Now is most well known within the fandom for the standard edition being entirely self-written by Taylor on her own, with no input from collaborators on any of the standard 14 tracks. The reasoning behind this was partly due to critics claiming she must not have pulled her weight in the writing sessions for her previous hits, but also due to being constantly on the road headlining her first tour. She soon got into a routine with her then producer Nathan Chapman. As described by Taylor herself in the Lover Deluxe Edition diaries, she would travel to his home studio and work in the intimate setting, fully trusting him and working side by side with the production of the album.
Speak Now was marketed as a loose concept album, based around things Taylor was never able to say to people at the time, finally being able to reveal her truths through her music. This included some of her most personal and raw songs, littered with extreme details that led to many speculating about who and what these songs were written about, almost all of them having public backstories to them and sparking curiosity in many listeners.
The diaristic writing of her previous albums continued on in her third project. However, the fairy tale lens through which Fearless was written was shed away in most of this album, taking more of a down-to-earth approach to heartbreak. A prime example of this shift is in the name of the album itself. Though Taylor had originally planned to call it Enchanted, after a conversation with her label at the time, she ultimately came up with the concept for Speak Now, changing the overall tone of the remaining tracks that made the album.
The self-written songs included some of Taylor's best lyrical work, and also some of her longest tracks, becoming clear that she was able to carefully craft a detail-oriented song that told an entire story from start to finish. This includes some of the fandom's most beloved tracks, such as Last Kiss, which is celebrated yearly, Dear John, which has recently become a hot topic in the fandom, Enchanted, which recently had a big moment on TikTok, as well as Innocent, Mean, and Long Live, among many others.
Unlike with her first 2 establishing eras, Speak Now is easier to define and came with changes in aesthetic that marked the era as its own thing, with its own sound and imagery.
In retrospect, and when compared to the rest of Taylor's discography, it does honestly seem like Speak Now is somewhat overlooked, but nonetheless appreciated by the fandom, especially for cementing Taylor's ability as a songwriter, allowing her to be taken seriously by her peers, critics, and fans alike. It would also seem that Speak Now is an album best consumed as a whole. Having said this, with Taylor's version of Speak Now around the corner, it's safe to say the album will surely be heightened and reconsidered by many in the coming months, the same way that Fearless was remembered with nostalgia, and Red was deeply appreciated through their retrospective re-releases.
As a cherry on top in the Speak Now era, and in a moment Taylor must have deeply relished, the song written directed at a very particular detractor who had criticised her performance at the Grammys, Mean, went on to win 2 Grammy Awards for Best Country Solo Performance and Best Country Song. Furthermore, this album truly made Taylor stand out in contrast to many of her pop peers as a true singer-songwriter, highly dedicated to her craft while continuing to connect with fans on a profound level through a murky, naive, laid-bare account of a young adult shedding away her girlhood.
Taylor's second headlining tour was her most widespread, with stops in Asia, Europe, North America, and Oceania. It was named the Speak Now World Tour and lived up to this title, catering to the international demand on a level that as of yet Taylor hasn't replicated. It lasted for over a year, spanning between 2011 and 2012, and included setlist, costumes, and even hairstyle and aesthetic changes, which slowly revealed Taylor stepping into her new next era. To give an idea of the general Speak Now setlist, it included Sparks Fly, Mine, The Story of Us, Our Song, Mean, Back to December, which contains elements of Apologize and You're Not Sorry, Better Than Revenge, Speak Now, Fearless, which also contains elements of Hey Soul Sister and I'm Yours, Last Kiss, You Belong With Me, Dear John, Enchanted, Haunted, Long Live, Ours, 15, and Love Story. What's interesting about this set list is looking at what songs from each era are included. So there's 4 Fearless songs, 15 Love Story, You Belong With Me and Fearless, and 1 song from debut, Our Song. But as can be seen, most of Speak Now was included throughout the entire tour, meaning that the only song as of right now that has never been performed before, neither on the Speak Now World Tour or subsequent tours, is If This Was a Movie.
As for which songs from Speak Now appeared on the Reputation Stadium Tour, which is the most recent Taylor tour that we can use to compare to the upcoming Eras tour, the only song on the set list was Long Live, which was mashed up with New Year's Day. However, she did perform some surprise songs from Speak Now throughout the tour, including Mean, The Story of Us, Speak Now, Mine, Sparks Fly, Haunted, and Never Grow Up.
What is interesting as well is that during the Lover era there were no Speak Now songs included in some of the mashups. Despite not being included in the Lover era, what is interesting though is looking at the stats from Setlist FM. For example, Sparks Fly has been performed over 200 times, which is the most performed song from Speak Now, despite it not being the lead. If you'd like to find out more behind Sparks Fly and its creation, original lyrics, as well as 2007 and then eventually released Speak Now version lyrics, make sure that you check out our Sparks Fly episode. I highly recommend. Both of us thoroughly enjoyed looking back at all of the lyrics and analysing the differences and kind of why stuff was changed, so definitely check that out if you're interested. Also, as well, looking at the Setlist FM information, there's second and third most performed song from Speak Now is Mean and Mine. I guess so looking at all of this information from previous tours as well as the Setlist FM information that we looked at, it's now interesting to kind of discuss what we think Taylor is likely to perform on the Eras tour. How are you kind of feeling in terms of Speak Now songs?
I think Speak Now is a very difficult one. With Fearless and with Debut, we kind of had some key songs in mind that have always appeared throughout the eras, or just really popular ones that were like, yeah, they've got to be there. For Speak Now, it's just there's so many songs that have a chance, honestly, I think.
Oh, yeah.
For example, Sparks Fly, which it's always been a popular song to be performed. It has such a big story.
I think Sparks Fly is very likely. The fact that it carried over into the Red Tour as well. And I just think, there's something about it that it is just lead single quality. I've always said that I'm surprised that was never the lead single. It just has this really cool kind of element. And it was even used during the Red Tour as a bit of an opener in some of the kind of early Red era performances. So I think that Sparks Fly definitely has a chance, definitely, as kind of being on the Eras Tour set list. Have you got any kind of other? Because it's really hard to think. Because also they're so long, the Speak Now songs as well. Often they're just mashed up.
Yeah, this is true.
Length,
they are
with
quite...
Long Live and Enchanted.
Exactly, they are quite long. There's a lot of them that are very wordy as well. So I really don't think many of the singles from the era are going to make an appearance. Like with Fearless and Debut, we did go on about those singles. Love Story, You Belong With Me, Our Song. But from this era, I do think Sparks Fly is there. It's a big consideration. Another thing that we really don't know and could change everything is what songs are going to be highlighted on Speak Now Taylor's version.
100%. I'm also thinking that I think if Taylor's version comes out before tour, I definitely think a Speak Now Taylor's version will be featured in some area of some part of the kind of set list, but I'm kind of feeling like there'll be about 3 possibly from Speak Now that I think all of them will be mashed. I think the only one that's likely to get its entire song, the entire song, is maybe Sparks Fly, but even then I think it'll be a mashup. And I'm kind of feeling Sparks Fly, Long Live, just because of the kind of the fan element of it. And I think even during the Reputation Stadium tour, it had such a big moment, and I think that fans would just love to hear that song. It's become such a kind of fan moment.
It has, but so having said that, I am in two minds about Long Live, because it is an amazing song, and it would be amazing as a closer, because just of, like you said, the connection with fans. Yeah. However, because she already did kind of use it, and the spotlight was on it during the Reputation Stadium tour, which is the last one we have to compare to, she might want to go in a different direction, honestly. Maybe.
That's my one concern. But then the other one that I'm thinking as well is Enchanted. Enchanted, but not all of it. Mainly just I'm kind of thinking a chorus kind of bridge, basically from the kind of second chorus onwards. Kind of like she did with You Belong With Me and Love Story, where she kind of did the best bits of the songs rather than the entire thing. So Love Story, she started off with the kind of intro, main chorus then went straight into the bridge, and then obviously that kind of bridge into the final chorus then obviously bridged into the bridge of You Belong With Me, and then the final chorus, which is kind of the big kind of popular moments of the songs. So I'm feeling like she'll do something similar with Enchanted. But yeah, Long Live is kind of difficult because I do think it would be a cool moment on tour, but I don't know if it will work. And then other than that, I'm not really thinking that anything else. Mine, I don't really think will have a bit of much of a moment. And the other ones, I just don't think... Like Mean, I'm not really sure. Yeah, it's quite big, but I think that certain songs deserve a bit more. Like,
it's just not in the same realm. It's not in the same realm as the ones that we've mentioned. I do think those three are the most likely. Sparks Fly, Enchanted, Long Live, honestly, I do.
Speak Now is always one that's really hard because it's not one that has big, massive pop single moments of like Love Story, You Belong With Me, We Never Ever Get It Back Together that you think, oh, that's got to be on there in some way because it's such a massive single. But it's got such good fan moments and such like songs that really go off and are so cool live that it's hard to pick, and because it's like, do you pick the ones that just sound really good live or the most popular ones? I think it would be really cool if Sparks Fly got another moment. The fact that it's been almost like one of her kind of the journey that song has gone on, it would be quite cool to have it again in the kind of Eras tour when, you know, it was like a pre-debut song. So yeah. I would love for it to kind of have another moment.
Honestly, I think out of the three that we've mentioned, I do think Sparks Fly is the one that is most likely to be there, just because Long Live and Enchanted have already kind of had a moment. Like Enchanted had it on the 1989 tour, Long Live had it on the Reputation Stadium tour, even though they were in mashups. So maybe it's time for Sparks Fly to reappear and shine once again, which would be a nice addition. Yeah. And the only problem is with a lot of the other songs from Speak Now is how hard Taylor has said that they are to sing. Like, from an emotional standpoint.
Yeah. From an emotional standpoint, and even a vocal standpoint, like, you know, some of those songs, especially with kind of like Dear John, which is obviously one of the ones that she struggles to sing from an emotional standpoint, that's also a pretty big, you know, in the Speak Now World Tour, when she hits that big, chord, like that kind of big note at the end, you know, she properly goes off and you can see that she's really building up to it. And what's quite interesting as well is during the Speak Now World Tour that Taylor used that tour to basically improve on her live vocals, and she said herself that, you know, one of the reasons why that tour was so long and so many nights and days was to be able to kind of prove the point of, you know, she's a bad singer, she can't sing, and learn to be able to sing and learn that kind of vocal control and skill. And from that point onwards, her vocal skills from the Speak Now kind of era massively improved.
I think for now, the ones that we've mentioned are the most realistic. I am kind of betting mostly on Sparks Fly. I do think a lot of this will depend on how she promotes and what she promotes from Speak Now Taylor's version. If we get maybe something, you know, a vault song that goes off, perhaps that will also appear somehow on the tour. If she decides to do kind of like an all too well kind of thing with any of the songs like Enchanted or like Speak Now itself, that would be amazing, and I reckon then they would appear. But as for now, I think the songs that I think are most likely.
I think we've kind of mentioned as well briefly earlier about like Long Live as a closer. How are you feeling? I know that's a bit of a discussion at the moment within the fandom. How are you kind of feeling about that?
I do think for what this tour is and marketed as the Eras tour, it's strange because I know a lot of people think that Midnight's songs are going to open and close this tour just because Midnight's is our most recent album. But I think as the Eras tour as it is marketed, I think Long Live would be such an amazing closer. I really, really do.
Me too. I would love something like that. Because it would just, that is like the most kind of Eras-y thing ever of like, you know, about like kind of the importance of the family throughout all of the eras and what that song's become, and I would love it as a closer, but I also feel like, would it go down well with, say, the general public? And would it really go off?
It all depends and hinges upon what she does with Speak Now Taylor's version. I do think so, because I think a lot of people are going to be rediscovering or discovering this album through that. And yeah, if she decides to make it a focal point like she did with You Belong With Me and All Too Well, I do think that it could easily work.
For now, these guesses seem to be the most likely predictions, considering everything that we've looked at, but make sure that you subscribe over here on YouTube and join us next week as we discuss Taylor's fourth album, Red, and kind of look at what may be appearing on the Eras tour in regards to the Red era.